Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello to you and welcome back to the channel where you join me on a beautiful day at the Bilster Berg circuit in Germany. I'm out here with Mercedes-AMG to bring you a detailed look and first drive experience in the new facelifted AMG C63 S. We have all four variants of the model at our disposal: the Coupe, Cabrio, Saloon and the Estate. And today I'm going to drive it out on the roads and also here on the circuit and tell you just about everything there is to know about the new model. So let's head down to the cars and take a look at the new C63 S. AMG, three letters associated with driving performance, and in 2017 AMG sold 130,000 cars. From the performance versions of regular Mercedes-Benz models, the likes of the C-Class that become the C43 or the C63 S like we have today, to their own lines including the AMG GT and the newly introduced AMG GT 4-door Coupe. But what we have behind me is a fantastic lineup of the different variations, configurations and specs of the C63S. So let's take a quick introduction before we single one out to talk through it in more detail. Now firstly, the four different body styles that we're greeted with. You have the likes of the Limousine, the Saloon, the Sedan, the regular 4-door version of the C-Class. Then you have the T-Modell, as it's called here in Germany. That's the Estate or station wagon. In addition, you have two different 2-doors. You can see them over there. The Cabrio convertible with the folding soft top, and then the fixed roof Coupe. Now on the face of it, not too much has changed with the facelifted C63S. I took a look at one not all that long ago. It looks very familiar. A few subtle changes. Under the skin, it has a new gearbox, but powered by the same familiar 4-litre bi-turbo V8. I'll run over all of the details of the changes, but I think the most significant one is now having the Panamericana front grille with those vertical slats, a historical thing, but also seen more recently on the AMG GTR, the flagship sports car for the Racetrack. So I will be looking at a convertible, but while we're standing here, just to see the lines, the sharpness, the styling, of course, it's a C-Class on steroids. This is really the C63 and the C63S. Turn it into an angry brute. You can see that just in terms of the design, the shapes, the lines, the styling. These cars very highly equipped with the lightweight wheels, for example. And this is the one that we're going to be talking through in more detail. This Cabrio convertible that I'm going to be driving out on the road before joining, I think, in a coupe on the track. But we can hear the noise of this satin black coupe as it grumbles past. A fantastic burble. The one-man, one-engine philosophy that goes into these power plants that produce the anger that we have. Visually, not too much has changed, but to be honest, it really didn't need to. When the new model of the C-Class launched about 3 years ago, it was fundamentally a very different design to the previous generations that had come before it. The shapes and lines are smoother, sleeker, and more curved, yet the features still very much aggressive and pronounced. It's clearly a sporty car from the outset. Now, in terms of the exterior, there are only a handful of cues that give away that you're looking at the facelift. So that new Panamericana front grille at the front, the car has new wheels around the side, and if we come towards the back, one other identifier is the new rear diffuser, finished in carbon fibre here, but with this lower edge that houses the traditional AMG quad exhaust tailpipes that we'll be hearing plenty of very shortly. There are a number of updates to the interior in terms of the technology and trim, and we'll take a look at those when I step into the car shortly. But where things get interesting is what's going on underneath the skin. Saying that though, let's start with the power plant, which actually remains unchanged. Why change a winning formula after all? It's the 4-litre bi-turbo V8 from AMG in a Falterback. The power plant we're seeing across models in the lineup like the E63S or the AMG GTR with varying different configurations and turbo setups, but in this guise making 510 horsepower. The non-S version, the regular C63, makes 476, but it's linked now to a new gearbox. So gone is the 7-speed automatic from before, and now it's the AMG 9G system, so a 9-speed automatic gearbox, quicker shift times and a seamless feel that I'll discover when I'm driving it. As well as that, the AMG ride control, the adaptive suspension system, has also been reworked for the new car. But let's let's come and have a quick look at the interior and then the engine bay. Now we'll come back to this in more detail to run through everything, but to introduce the new changes, we have the AMG Sports steering wheel with the flat bottom and also the touch controls, because behind that you will spot the new full digital display that has a lovely startup picture there showing the grille and the headlights. So we'll go through all of the different settings and things you can see in the screens, but just to open up the engine down here for a moment, find the lever, there we go, come round to take a look at the 4-litre bi-turbo V8 that we have in here. The 510 horsepower unit, built one man, one engine, as we've seen on the channel before, down the line in the engine workshop in a Falterback. So in the car, in the S version, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 62 miles per hour, is 4.0 seconds. In the non-S, it's 4.1. The top speeds vary depending on the car, so the non-S has a limited top speed of 250 kilometers per hour, 155 miles per hour. The S variants, if it's a coupe or a saloon, have a top speed of 290 kilometers per hour, 180 miles per hour. The Cabrio and the Estate have a limited top speed of 280 k's or 174 miles per hour. Now, no doubt at that speed it will feel sturdy. It's got a wide wheelbase, a long wheelbase. You can see the enhanced arches that the C63 S wears. Let's close this back down though and have a quick look at this interior, start it up and then prepare to go out to drive, he says, as some of the cars just go past down the start line right there. So to step into the car, I will show you the key, which is currently in my pocket. It's a keyless system naturally. This is the key that we have for the car. A few simple buttons to open the boot, lock and unlock. Small piece, nice feel to it. Take a step in, where you are greeted, to be honest, by quite a few buttons to do different things. Lots of technology through the functionality you have down here, but the starter button is tucked in right here to wake up the screen and bring it into life. Now, I'm probably going to have to drive this car with the roof up because otherwise it's going to be spectacularly hot. But what we have here is a high resolution display, a lot of information. You can get the AMG track pace if you want to get some track telemetry and data about your driving. The car has the Burmester sound system. You can see with the speakers out there on the side where you've got your cooled and heated seats. The air scarf system in the Cabrio, so you can have air blowing out of the back here if you're otherwise uncomfortable. So hot air blowing out of your neck on a cold day, for example. Bit of storage space down here with some sockets to plug in and charge things, and your cup holders and all of your controls here. Now, one other thing that's changed is these new hot controls that you have on the steering wheel, the soft keys that you have directly for the exhaust mode switch, closed and opened, the suspension right here, so if you think while you're driving you can reach this immediately with your finger to toggle between the different modes. And then on the right side you can go through your different driving configurations: Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, Race, and then within Race you have a new set of configurations, a master switch so to speak, that can toggle the ESP and the suspension setup as well directly around how you want to have it set up. So given the engine is still warming up, just a little sound, but you kind of get the point where this is going. This is a beastly angry sound from the C63. So let's get out onto the roads and see what it's like to drive. This is very much a premium vehicle, and this specific one has an incredibly high spec. But things like when you close the door, you have the bracket over your shoulder that will hand you the seat belt. So something that's nice in the coupe and convertible, just to make it slightly easier to reach around and grab that to belt yourself in, as well as making it easier for your rear passengers to climb through it. In the Cabrio and Coupe, you have a 2-seat configuration in the back, and it does kind of look like there's enough space back there. In the Saloon and the Estate, you have a 3-seat bench, more traditionally in the back. But I am going to say that it is absolutely boiling today. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is press and hold the lever to do the roof mechanism, because I need to be slightly cooler. And to do that, I can also turn on the ventilated seat button in the door panel, and I immediately can feel some cool air blowing through the back, which is very, very nice right now to get away and escape from the sunshine just for a moment. I will try driving it with the roof down, or at least attempt to do so. We'll get a beep. There we go, we get a beep and all is closed. You can put all the windows down, have them all up, depending how you'd like it. Now you've got touch panels to scroll through a few different displays. You have the gear stick selector right here, as is kind of tradition in most Mercedes models. So you'll park, reverse, neutral and drive. You press it down with your foot on the brake to go into gear, and we will head on out. So I've still got it in race mode, hence why it is quite so burbly at the moment. But let us depart. That does actually sound really good. And you can feel a small kick from the shifts as well. It's quite a nice little sensation. So let's be a little bit fairer on this and go back down towards, well, comfort mode maybe to begin with. So the gentle easy cruise as we head out past another little nice line up there, the AMG GTS. So I've got a head-up display, which is again very nice, telling me we're in 6th gear at 40 kilometers per hour. That gives you a sensation of what this gearbox is about. Now let's just close that pop-up for a moment. We've got lots of different displays that I know you can go through and go back to home. So I've got navigation up on there. You can hear it telling me gently what exactly I need to do, but I'm just following the marked route away from Bilster Berg at the moment with the sun just starting to go down. It's a soft voice, we're familiar with this from various different Mercedes models. Steering feel is actually quite heavy, even in comfort mode, which is what you want in the sporty style of car that this actually is. I am going to have to find out how to do that and how to turn it off, and I've ended up turning on the radio. This is always the challenge when you're driving unfamiliar cars, how you do the different settings. So cruising along like this, I can see the pop-up for the assisted steering. I know it has blind spot monitoring, lane guidance, you can have adaptive radar cruise control, you name it these days. With these kind of cars, you can spec and opt just about anything you want. Now this comes very highly equipped to begin with. You can spec the premium package, which loads most of the technology options you might actually want on the car to very much begin with. Things like the carbon fiber mirrors look awesome. Visibility actually for a convertible, it has to be said, are fairly decent. The view I have out of the back is not too compromising. The C-pillars, naturally, you lose a little bit to have the mechanism for the folding soft top, but it's not too bad, and then the B-pillar's non-existent just by having that small thin piece that separates the two parts of glass. So to scroll through the different driving modes, which I love being able to do from the steering wheel, that is a very, very nice touch. Traditionally it was here, it is actually still in the center console as well, if you'd prefer to do it that way. So they're going up into Sport Plus, where it opens up the taps and just makes a little bit of noise as we meander around the outside of the track here, just heading towards the exit of the venue. Drop down some gears very quick for an automatic gearbox. An auto gearbox is a touch lighter than a double clutch gearbox, the newest generations, and they work so well. Efficiently, smoothly, gently, everything about it, not a bad word to say. So just a gentle squeeze as we head out. Yes, that noise, that AMG noise that you hear so much of, that is brilliant. And when I put the roof down, it's only going to get even better. And this is in Sport Plus. You get most of the crackles and bangs and that side of things when you pop it then up into race mode. So far, everything is smooth. Everything is pretty gentle, given that the suspension is running in Sport Plus. I didn't turn that back down. It's feeling it a little bit now, but at slow speed, I wasn't really noticing that it was a rough ride. So in comfort now, I can tell it's softened up, and that's your long-distance motorway cruising mode. Exhaust valve button very much open. You could close it, but to be honest, yeah, you can tell it's closed, but I'm not really sure why you'd want that. Much better when it's open.
Turn right.
It's a very soft voice, isn't it, telling me what to do. So, let's head out of the track and find some more open roads. The funny thing when you're then driving along is you're sitting in 7th gear when you should actually be in 8th or 9th. It's crazy the way gearboxes are going, but what it means is that you can have a lot of power very quickly. You can have gears set up with different ratios. So 9th, for example, would have very little power. In fact, with my foot flat, the kilometers are barely raising at all. Oh, there we go. I reached the kick down and the car did what it felt I wanted. But the point is, that's your efficient gear for motorway cruising. Now in Germany here, of course, if you head out onto the Autobahn, you can put your foot down and go for an absolute blast and reach the top speed of 280 kilometers an hour in this very car. So in the previous gen, you had to spec the driver's package to unlock a top speed above the industry standard 250 kilometers per hour to get it up to the 280 or 290. In this, that comes standard on the S. Another thing that's standard on the S is the track telemetry. On the non-S, you have to order that as an option. In addition, you can obviously spec a whole lot of different things. This car has a nice carbon style trim. We've got the stainless brushed side panels around the doors, the Alcantara steering wheel with the 12 o'clock stripe. In fact, the steering wheel itself is an absolute delight. A really, really nice thing to have in the car with all of your controls. On the left side, you've got your adaptive cruise control buttons, which works very, very well. You can step up, step down speeds, or go individually. You can change the distance to the vehicle in front or behind. And then on the right-hand side, you have all of your telephone and media controls. Again, very easily accessible. Now, as we go around a slightly tighter corner, of course, the steering adjusts the feel depending on the mode that you're driving in. It has a great feel to the weighting of the steering. I have to really commend it on that. It feels very, very smooth, delicate and accurate. And the car doesn't feel the weight that it might be. Traditionally, this is a heavy engine, you know, it's a large displacement V8, but the car feels more nimble than that. It doesn't feel big on the road. Yes, it's not an 845 hot hatch size, but equally, it's substantially smaller than the more grown-up versions in the line, you know, the E-Class and the S-Class. The C being the babyier, almost entry-level Mercedes outside of the hot hatch side, outside of the A-Class. Not necessarily hot, you can have an A-Class diesel or a smaller petrol engine. But just for a cruise like this, it's great. Then you start playing around with it a little bit more, get some more sound out of it, feel some more power, enjoy these gorgeous roads that we have around here. Stunning place to be driving. Probably this is where I should slow down, pop the roof down and see that side of things. So why don't we actually do that? Let's slow down the pace down to under. Oh, that was a nice crack. I'm looking forward to hearing those noises when the roof is down. So there we go, down to a slower speed, pull it back. You can do this while you're driving up to about 50 kilometers per hour or so. Just be a bit patient for it to do its thing, as it basically puts a ginormous air brake up into the air. That will then tuck on back down, of course, while the rear deck is up. It limits my rear visibility. That was a nice sound going past us there too. And we get the beep and we're all done. So all the windows are back up. Small little air scarf between the rear seats. You can put in a deflector as well if you want less wind intrusion into the cabin. But this is where that sound, this is what I love about AMG. Listen to this. So it's definitely quite blustery in here. You might hear some of that on the camera, and I apologise in advance if you do. That's of course due to not having the wind deflector in the setup. It looks better without it when you're filming videos and showing around the car, but of course the negative effect is that it will get a little bit breezier when we're driving. But the speed pickup is great. The torque, obviously I'm just flicking between third and fourth gear here now, which is down to second there, just to accelerate away. Automatic shift on the red line. Goodness me, it gets a move on. It gets a move on. Now when you do spec up one of these quite highly, the price is obviously fairly significant. That is, I would say, the drawback. But then you do that. This is a factory exhaust system. AMG absolutely destroy the competition when it comes to gorgeous engine sounds. They are absolutely out there on top. So just cruising along a little bit here into a slower section. Let's pop it back down then into comfort. You can actually go individual mode where you can pre-configure how you want the gearbox, the suspension, the traction control, the steering feel, the response, all of that side of things. Or you can go into slippery mode if, let's say, now where do we need to go? We need to go this way. If, let's say, it's wet, snowy, icy, and you want to be extra safe, you can pop it into the slippery modes. If I just do that right now into slippery, yeah, it's in fifth gear, very, very quiet. Relaxed. Look at this view, lovely place. This is exactly where you don't want to be driving a car like this with the roof down in slippery mode. So let's go back out of that, through individual, sport. I love how easy this is to get to the settings you want. Race mode for full noise that you get out of it. Drop the gears. There we go. On a road like this though, this is the kind of car you can use for everything. I mean, the Coupe obviously has a higher level of practicality than the Cabrio, and then the Saloon has a higher than that, and the Estate even more so. But it's a regular C-Class, you know, it could be disguised almost as a vanilla C-Class. People wouldn't realise that what you're driving is a serious weapon, a veritable machine when it's out and about and it's stretching its legs in full, and capable of, you know, I'm breezing along at a decent pace, shall we say, with complete effortlessness as we enjoy this drive. Roof down, obviously, no visibility issues at all, lovely view all around. The feel is good. I really like what AMG are doing, and I'm not discreet about it. You know I love my AMG GTR, and I don't think that's going to be the only AMG model in my lineup at some point. And this, you do start to feel a bit of the weight of it, but that's counteracted for me by the excitement of the driving experience, the boisterousness, the get up and go. And actually, let's just slow it down again and put the roof back up. So pop that back. You have to press the button down to put the roof up, which is slightly the opposite of what you might be expecting. Let's not sit in first gear, up into second. So you get a bit of a kick on the gearbox if you've got it in a sportier configuration, for example, up into race. But the roof is very, very quiet, it has to be said. The mechanism, you don't hear much by way of motors and noise, just the windows as they do their final adjustment. And then when you're driving along due to the insulation, and with the engine sound, there's next to nothing from the outside world that is disturbing in any way my driving experience here. Don't really hear it, just what the car's up to. Goodness me, love it. Absolutely fantastic. enjoy some sound there. I certainly did. Let's try a quick race start. So the car in race mode, come to a stop in first gear, foot firmly on the brake, down on the throttle, it's blinking away, release, and away you go. Getting the grip, oh, auto upshifting early, that was interesting to experience. Okay, so fair to say it gets moving really, really quickly. The interesting thing though, was of course, using the computers to do that, they optimized the shift point. So it shifted early from first into second, but no doubt that's about where the torque delivery is, where the car is going to have maximum power for the quickest ultimate getaway. You know, that's about doing launch control, drag race style. So can we squeeze past this tractor? Always nerve-wracking, but we're good, and we can continue on our way. I tell you what my usual AMG complaint is, and this car hasn't managed to escape it. The seats are very firm. The AMG performance seats have a very rigid back to them. Of course, you can move them in a million different directions and change the side bolsters and lumbar elements using electrical motors, but they are very, very firm. And I've only been driving for a short distance and I'm already feeling it. In the AMG GTR, you could have these seats, or you could opt to have the performance bucket seat. And I actually prefer the bucket seat, even though you would think that would be the firmest variant. This I just find with every bump, you're fighting for a little bit of grip, and it's my biggest gripe, I suppose, with AMG models is the seats, and also a little bit the weight of the car, but the weight, as I said, is kind of counteracted by the noise it makes. Just cruising along though, we've got our technology, our steering assistance, our adaptive cruise, our head-up display info, you name it, the car will do it. So all on the road is an awesome time. Shall we head towards the racetrack and have a little play there? It is time then to swap the road for the racetrack, where we will be doing a lead follow operation behind one of the beasts of the green hell, the AMG GTR and green hell Magno. But the fascinating thing here is this shares the 4-litre bi-turbo V8 in AMG's flagship supercar that you find in the sports car now, the C63, where we have the Saloons and we have the satin black Magno of the coupes. So I'll get my gear, jump on board one, and head out behind the beast of the green hell. Out on the track we go. So I'm driving in Sport Plus at the moment, and the first thing I can tell you is that it is astonishingly noisy in here, and I'm wearing a helmet at the moment. But let's try and get a squirm on as we follow the AMG GTR. So we're driving with traction fully on. I can't turn it off due to the nature of the event we're driving in today. And race mode now doesn't actually control the traction because it has its own independent settings through the Master and Pro and Advanced setup that I'll show you afterwards. But we're blasting around this pretty gnarly circuit. It's undulating, it's bumpy, it's rough, there are deceptive corners, but enjoying the sounds and the speed of the shifting is astonishing. It feels like it wants to play, it wants to go tail happy, it wants to have a bit of fun as we come through the tightest corner here. That would be very easy to get it wrong. So out we go, traction is intervening quite a lot at the moment. I'm feeling it as we come out through the bumps and up following the AMG GTR. Over the crest here, traction on in full. But let's go now using the toggle up into race mode so we can feel the difference. Drop some gears as we come down towards the chicane element here. And cycle through. You can feel the weight transfer of the car quite dramatically as we power on. And then the pickup is incredible. The speed is brilliant. Up towards 200 odd kilometers an hour and over 200 onto the brakes. Carbon ceramics on this car. Coming back out towards the outside of the corner to turn on in and hold the grip around the corner. Great levels of grip and feel. Lots of feedback coming through the wheel. It's still a fairly heavy car, you're very aware of that as you're driving, but it feels good. If you try and shift down too early, you get the whole dashboard lighting up red to let you know that you've made a faux pas there. But coming round to the first corner, the tightest corner, oh, the back's starting to go there. So accelerate out up the start line. Not too bad, not too bad. Oh, short shifted myself because it automatically shifts unless you use the buttons to go into a kind of manual configuration setting to override it slightly. Wow. All right then, so what else do we have here? Well, you can change what these different toggles actually show you, which is brilliant. You can do a hotkey, one press on the right and go to your individual mode, your custom setup. On the left side, at the moment, I've got exhaust, and I'll show you how these change. But the car has this new AMG dynamic system that adjust the balance and setup and feel, oh, we're running out of fuel, better be safe and sensible on that front. Which, as I was explaining, you can now change the way the suspension and ESP is working. So traditionally ESP in a car is about making it go fast in a straight line. The ESP in here, with the dynamic system, is now about using the ESP to go fast in a corner. So it will accelerate the outside wheel, for example, brake the inside wheel, to optimize your cornering performance. And this is, you know, a car that you can drive to the shops in, and then a car that you can blast around a racetrack with in noisy, entertaining style. The front end is great when you consider the weight of the car. The displays are brilliant. You've got a lot of information you can look at on these screens and systems. And obviously we've not gone full off in this little track stint, but even there, traction blinking away at me. Just get rid of the reserve fuel warning for the message for the moment. Oh, there we go. That's what you've got to look out for, shifting down in a corner. But it rides well, and it drives incredibly well. I never thought I'd be on a racetrack telling the car that I don't want to search for petrol stations right now. I mean, there's probably one not very far away, but this is not the time and a place to find that. So you've got all sorts of different screens and things you can bring up and set up and configure too, which I'd like to give you a run through when we do pull into the pits. Oh, nice big downshift. The gearbox is magnificent. So, does that bring an end to our session? Yes, there we go. So into the pit lane. Not a bad outing with this car at all. A lot of fun, a lot of noise, a lot of racket. You feel the weight of it, but even still, it's just a hoot to drive. It goes without saying that that was a pretty good run, thrown straight in the deep end for some high-speed laps around the track. But while we're still here in the pit lane, there are one or two things I'd like to show you that are on this coupe, particularly the dynamics and controls for the different driving modes. So we'll head outside to have a proper look at the estate car in a moment. But while we're still here in the pit lane, allow me to show you what we have right here with these touch controls on the steering wheel. So you can configure these to show what you'd like them to do. For example, if you press on the illuminated part with the display, you will see that it cycles through different settings. For example, if you go to exhaust, loud, quiet, as one goes straight past right now. And you can change both of these. On the right hand side, you can scroll through your various different drive modes, Sport Plus, Race, and a press of the button will always take you back to individual mode. You can see even slippery there. That all comes up as expected. Now, one thing I particularly like is with the traction control. If you press ESC, oh, I've actually just re-enabled ESC. So let's put ESC into sport handling mode, and then one more press and hold to actually disable and turn that off. You then see the 9-stage traction control that we're familiar with from the AMG GTR. And not only that, have a look at this toggle, the way it shows you on that screen the different traction settings. So basically 1, 2, and 3 over to the far right are your normal safe and sporty modes, and then you get to various degrees of off, allowing the car to have more slip, and completely off, as you can see right there, all through that display. That is really, really cool. I like it an awful lot, pressing to scroll back through. So this car has been pretty good fun, it has to be said. Let's just put this back into the modes it was in. I need to leave it for the next person to take it out on track, but let's go head into the main paddock behind and have a proper run through. As we near the end of the day, we've got the lineup here under the setting sun of all of the different body styles, so we can compare and talk about some of the differences between them. And I've also got the keys now to the estate on the end, which has quite a different interior, and I can run you through the infotainment as well. But let's get started with the Cabrio. The Cabrio, I would say, fairly has the most substantial difference, given that it doesn't have a roof, or rather it has a folding soft top. Now, something I didn't correctly tell you earlier is that back here, the wind deflector on the rear shelf can raise and lower electronically from a button in the center console. So this is one of the differences versus the upfront interior of the other cars. Right here, the buttons to do with the roof mechanism. So in the center, you can raise and lower the roof itself. On the right hand side, you have the button to raise and lower that rear wind deflector. And then on the left side, you have a one-touch button to do all 4 of the windows. So if you press that that down, it's one touch and all 4 windows would lower. In the center, you have a button similar to how it's found on the other cars that opens up the armrest with a decent amount of storage space, and at the moment plenty of charging cables as well, but that's all fairly self-explanatory. Other than that, most things in the front part of the cabin are similar. You have the air scarf control, and I guess you're more likely to find the cooled seats and heating seats options in the convertible than the other models. In the back, you have the dual seat configuration that I alluded to. You've got an amount of space. You won't fit somebody particularly tall back here, especially when you consider the height of the rear seats, maybe for a short journey, but you can fold down the lower parts of the backrest. The headrest will stay in place, retaining the look when they're folded, and use that as an additional luggage space. But back here, you've got a continuation of the very nice trims, finishes, materials, the sound system as well, the leathers, the contrast stitching. The back is, well, a fairly nice place, and in the center, you've got the cup holders down there as well, with the metal back finish here, folding the seat back, which then electronically reverses back towards the rear. So the convertible and coupe outside of the roof itself have a similar appearance, with this very curved, large, bulbous almost rear end. And I have to be honest, I think that's not necessarily my favorite thing. We've obviously got the coupe here as well, but probably for me, my first choice is the Limousine. I actually think that it's the best looking of the cars with the 4 doors, and it's actually slightly lighter as well, which means, you know, with the same power plant, it's going to be an ever so slightly touch faster. So Limousine gets my shout, but there is something extraordinarily cool about a fast estate car, a model like the C63 S T-Modell. This could have a pet in the boot, it could have your family luggage, or taking, you know, the kids to school, or whatever it may be. But then it's a car that can drive as well as this does and make the noise that it makes. There's always been a place in my heart for this kind of car that you don't necessarily realise what it is. You might mistake this for a normal C-Class estate, yet it's got a 4-litre bi-turbo V8 with over 500 horsepower. But just have a look at the interior that we have in here. Very different, as I mentioned, to the other cars, with the brown leather, with the contrast diamond stitching. We've got the perforations on the seat for the various heating, cooling elements, and we also have this particularly nice carbon fibre steering wheel. So let me take a step in here and we'll fire it up and go through some of the configurations we have available. Bring it into life. The Amg Welcome Screen on the centre there. The screens are very, very nice. They're larger than before, they're higher resolution, clearer, crisper. You can just see a touch more through them. So I'm going to close the door actually, but let's just first run through some of the controls you have here. Of course, your usual windows for all of the windows in the car and your mirrors, your seat controls on the door along with your memory seats, heated seat option up there. You have further seat controls down here actually on the side of the seat in terms of the bolsters and the lumbar support, so you can probably just about see those down there on the side of the seat. But otherwise, this is all finished very, very nicely around the Burmester sound system, more or less what you'd expect. It doesn't have soft close, so I do need to close the door a little bit firmer than I just did. When you get to the steering wheel though, how nice is this? The Alcantara side grips, the carbon fibre over the top with the leather 12 o'clock stripe up there, carbon flat bottom around here with the steel finish. This is a very, very nice wheel, and it controls an awful lot. So the left side basically controls the driver display, and the right side controls the center display. It's similar in a way to the system we've seen in the E-Class, the CLS, the S-Class, the G-Class, but in a slightly different way, in that the screens aren't the dual cockpit that continues straight across. You still have this floating tablet. Many people aren't the biggest fans of those floating tablet style displays. I think it works in here, especially now that it's a bit wider, and it just seems to fit slightly neater without popping up quite so much up towards the top. So you can see the mode we're actually on right now. We can change the different displays. So you can see various different display configurations and options that you can actually have for the display itself. On the left side, you can toggle back to home and go through, you know, your media, radio, navigation, trip information. There's the AMG displays, the performance displays, where you've got your current driving configuration, your G-force sensor, your boost gauge, temperatures, you name it. You can bring up those various displays, all toggle through here. Underneath that, you have your cruise control and limiter, the ability to jump up in blocks of 5 kilometers an hour or whatever it may be, and increase and decrease the difference to the car in front. You can actually see the graphic that it shows us for that with the C-Classes right there, which is kind of nice as well. And on the right side, the button to do the main central part of the display. If you go back towards home, you'll see that you can toggle through and go through in-car office, telephone, media, radio, navigation, full screen nav display comes up there. Perhaps it could be ever so slightly more responsive, but I think when it's been running for longer, it actually starts reacting slightly quicker. back, and then beneath that you have your volume and media controls, telephone controls, those kind of things, and a hotkey down there to jump to where you'd like. Then obviously you have your touch controls, which are really very, very nice. Like it making a little bit more burble in the background. You can see a few more bits of information around and about the display. Obviously at the moment we have the large speedometer in the center inside the rev counter, trip info over at the right. You've got your steering wheel assist icon down there, fuel gauge right in the center. You can turn on a whole host of different bits and pieces you might like to see. You can set it to your heart's desire, really. Then down to the left, we've got a fewer hotkeys here than we had before, but these are some of your assistant systems and settings. You'd have the head-up display, for example, here, but we don't have it on this car, and then your light controls underneath. And then here, you have the electronic handbrake as well. Should you wish to put it beyond park, that is controlled by the right stalk, and your lights and wipers that are all controlled from the left stalk, which is all automatic, of course. High beam assist, rain sensor, you name it, it's all there. So if we continue over towards the center console, we're becoming familiar, I guess, with this display. Obviously it's from the previous C-Class, the IWC watch clock face in the center, some hotkeys for the infotainment right there. Above that, the climate control settings and the like, and then your air vents, which I'm really enjoying right now, blowing quite a lot of hot air. I've managed to turn on the radio, so let's just scroll that down for the moment. If we go into the home menu here and scroll all the way across to the right where we have vehicle, we go into here, you can set a lot of different things. So in dynamic select, we go into individual configuration. This is where you can change everything to your heart's desires. If you go to dynamics, this is the interesting thing that I was talking about. This is where you have Master, Pro, Advanced and Basic, which change from Sport, Sport Plus, Race or Individual, depending how you have it set up, of course. But this is where the ESP is doing its even tricker thing to keep the car best placed around the corners as it possibly can. So you can set all this up. You know, this is a full configurable vehicle in that sense. If we then go back to, oh, I went one too far. If we pull this back, we've got climate control settings. Track pace is quite interesting. Track pace is where you get, if we go in here, your track telemetry, warning, for use on racetracks only, naturally. But inside this, when it loads, just takes a second, is where it will give you various readouts. You can set tracks, set drivers, look back at your data when you've been going around circuits. How cool is it to have that in an estate? We've got a track telemetry system actually set up in an estate, even drag race mode as well. So yes, you'd add new tracks. Nothing's set up on here at the moment, which is why you don't see too much information, but that's all controlled right through there. Coming further down, you still have the traditional controllers, so you can interact with the infotainment through this, you know, your hotkey to go back to home, or even here as well, toggle through the different screens to navigate and scroll it through. On the left side, you can go through your driving modes using this, just like you can with here. So if you don't opt for this upgraded steering wheel, you'd still have this to go through your driving modes, manual or automatic on the paddles for the 9-speed auto. They're kind of small paddles, but almost button-like, but easily within reach on the back. Then you have your 3-stage suspension, so you can go through the different settings there. Your traction control button on the other side, volume controls, exhaust, auto start stop, and your parking camera. So if you want to bring up a 360-degree camera system like we have on this car, that is easily done using exactly that button. You can see here what I meant by this being ever so slightly different in terms of the button, but largely the same thing. So just looking around, seats, like I've talked about, very, very firm. They take some getting used to. I find them quite aggressive, but they do look good. There's no denying that they look very, very good. Up on the roof, you've got a couple of controls, your lights, things you'd expect to have up here. Sunglasses holder, feels a little bit flimsy, to be honest. Your visors, those are also a bit plasticky. These are some of the things I'm actually not liking quite so much about this car, but otherwise all largely as it says on the tin. To jump out and take a quick peek into the rear of the car and the boot, given the differences of this model we should take in. So back here you have the bench seat with a middle seat available as well. The seat in the front was roughly in my position, so sitting in behind, there's a decent amount of space, some room back there. Headroom isn't too bad either. Excuse the light that's a little bit funny here right now, but I've got a good, what's that, 5 or 6 centimeters above my head going on up there. What else do we have? Well, the nice finish of the back of the seats. You've got a screen here for the climate control, the 4-zone climate for the 2 different rear sides. Well, 3-zone, I'm sorry, I should say. The left side is temperature, the right side is fan speed. You have the armrest that opens up, a few storage parts here, cup holders at the front, and then a small storage bucket in the center. You obviously have child seat fixing points back here too, and the continuation of the sound system, and just nice finish and trim that you would expect to have in the back of the car. One other thing to show you, of course, the boot, given that that is the main difference to the estate version. Lots of space back here. You've got 20/40 folding rear seats. If you need to optimize space, we've got a 12-volt socket, a storage compartment as well. I suspect the floor folds up. We've got perhaps a little bit more room under there, as well as a storage bucket that I believe comes in all C-Class models that you can take out and fold out as you need it, as well as your inflation kit and bits and pieces. Buttons back here to quick lower the rear seats to make life a little bit easier, and a shelf as well that comes over the back and retracts away. That burble though is fantastic. The flutters of the V8 engine doing exactly what it should back there. So boot, lots of space back there, pretty much I think as you would expect it. But this car, well, listen to the noise of the coupe. Very, very, very nice. So let me just come back in quickly, turn this off. Actually, no, what I haven't done is give it a couple of quick blips. So now that it's warmed up while it's being sat here, we're in race mode, exhaust is off. You can hear that difference. Let me just give it a few quick blips so you can hear the noise that it makes. Wonderful, what a sound. So, let's turn that off then. One more thing to come and check out is the Limousine. So we've talked a lot about the other different cars, so let's just wander up here for a second, maybe have a quick glance inside the coupe as we walk past it. Sportier finish on here with the black with the yellow highlights. You can see a number of the different trims and options, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we have for all of the cars around. And also in here you have a button to open the boot from the driver's door too, but just a slightly different finish. That's more, I would say, the sporty style of finish. And then the Limousine, the Saloon, the Sedan, as you'd like to call it, I just think is the more subtle of the models, particularly in this colour. It looks wonderful in this sunshine. But just to show you back in here, different setup again with the dual tone grey finish that we have in this car, the same wheel that we started with, full Alcantara, but just, you know, same up front, lots of equipment, decent spec, technology, etc. And then in the rear here, practical, comfortable rear seat space as well. Let me just take a quick step in here, see if it's any different from the estate. I would say you lose a tiny bit of headroom, ever so slightly. Maybe it's a centimetre or two less, but still plenty of room, no shortage of leg room either. Basically much of a muchness. Limousine versus estate. Slightly awkward to climb out over the rear axle, the way it impedes on the doors. Obviously much shorter doors on the Limousine. You'll notice the front door is a fair bit shorter than the front doors on the coupe. But I think that's my choice, you know. It's a smaller carbon lip spoiler. It looks very, very, very nice. I like it an awful lot. So how does one decide between the different models? But in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's full detailed look at the new facelifted C63. My first drive on the road and also out on the track. I think I've covered it in a fair amount of detail, and I hope you've enjoyed that. So a big thanks to Mercedes-AMG as another one comes right past us just here. It's been an awesome day at Bilster Berg. Thank you very much to you guys as well, of course, for watching. I appreciate your support. Thank you for being subscribed, and stay tuned for the next video. I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers.